Anxious attachers are people who need constant reassurance. They need to be told, I love you, I like you, I'm thinking about you. These are people who need constant reassurance.
True.
When we talk about avoidant, fearful avoidant, these are people who want connection but fear the connection. They're like, I want to talk to this person, but at the same time, I'm afraid of talking to this person.
And I'm also giving this a lot to the people who are dating right now. Because this is also a red flag in most of our marriages today. Because the way we used to we communicate when we are dating is totally different when you guys are married. So it's kind of doesn't work when it comes to marriage. People can be telling, they can be available for you 8, 5, 6 hours in a day. But when it comes to marriage, things become totally different.
Assalamu alaikum, hello viewers. Thank you so much for joining us today for Q&A. But allow me to take this opportunity to also thank you guys for joining us on our last event that happened at Adams Mosque on 28th February. So there were a lot of questions asked during the Q&A panel. We managed to handle part of them, but we did not manage to cover all of them due to time constraint. So today I'm joined by two of my colleagues, and I would love to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves.
My name is Munira Hassan. I'm a counseling psychologist by profession, and I was one of the speakers at the mental health awareness. So I'm here to answer the questions that we got and we weren't able to get the time to give it out.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Zakaria Abdurrahman Mohammed. I was one of the panelists in our mental health awareness event that happened in Adams Arcade Mosque. And I'm a psychologist by profession, and I'm the chairperson of Dariel.
And finally, my name is Abdi Shukri with a background of finance and investment and also clinical psychologist. I was the moderator during that event, and today also I'll be moderating for you guys to make sure that we address majority of the questions that we left out. So going straight to the questions, and I would love to come to you, Munira. One of our participants asked, is short temper and isolating myself a matter of concern relating to mental health? And if yes, how can it be resolved?
That's a very good question. Yes, short temper is a part of anger management. It shows you there's need for anger management, and isolating yourself means there's need for someone who understands you. There's also need for getting that platform where you can be yourself at the same time needing people. So short temper and isolating yourself is a need for mental health. It's actually a cry. So how can you resolve this is by, first of all, learning anger management techniques, learning how can you communicate your feelings, how can you communicate your thoughts, how can you communicate anything that's within you. At the same time, be at a calming and peaceful state. And when we talk about isolation, this is a need for belonging, a need for someone who understands you. So that means you need to start evaluating yourself in terms of the social groups of the people you're surrounded yourself with. And it also means that you have to look for people. You're creating people who work for you, who work with you, or you're creating people who are not at a good space for your mental health. So how can you resolve this? Learn your boundaries, learn how to communicate, learn how to make or have healthy relationships.
I love that you touched a lot of things, specifically in relation to mental health. There's the aspect of belonging, aspect of social group and support, the aspect of boundaries, the aspect of communication. I just hope that, as time goes by, as we address different questions, as we get to have a lot of sessions, those are some of the topics that we'll be addressing so that people can have a good understanding of what those things entail and what they understand for. Let's dive into our next question. And our viewer asked, I have feeling, sometimes I'm sad, I cry, I feel helpless, and other times I feel good and okay. So should I seek help, or is this just mood swings? And I would love to go to Zakaria for this question.
Actually, it's a good question, and what I will tell the person who asks is, actually it's completely okay to feel a fluctuation in terms of mood. You can be sometimes be sad, but you can be sometimes helpless. You can be sometimes there's a change in mood sometimes. But what I will say is that if these become persistent in you, it's high chance for you to look for a professional counselor, because a professional counselor will help you understand the underlying issues behind your mood fluctuation.
Thank you, Zakaria, for that clarification. One thing I've picked from that response is you have to look for the persistency of your feelings. But before I proceed to my next question, I would love to come to you, Munira, if you have any addition to that specific question.
I believe that Zakaria had captured it very well. However, I want to just add the fact that you feeling sad, you feeling like you are crying, and shows that there's something that is happening within you that is not okay. And as much as you want to say that it might be a mood fluctuation or something, there's an underlying something there. There's an underlying issue that needs to be covered, and this underlying issue can be found and resolved through therapy. So seek therapy.
Seek professional help. Thank you, Munira. Let me proceed to my next question, which I'll come back to you, Zakaria. And it says, how does one stop needing constant communication from spouse?
That's a good question. What I will tell to the person who asked this question is, you need to consider that everyone has a preference in terms of communication. What you may consider excess for you can be a limitation for another person, or what you may consider a limitation for you can be an excess for him or her. And since this question is coming from a spouse, a couple, let me say a couple, what I can say is, like, people can be busy sometimes. They may have their own issue. The way you guys used to communicate when you are, maybe for example, on the dating days, for example, it's totally different when you guys are married, because actually when you are before you married, you used to get time for each other. There was no issue with work, there was no issue with kids. But right now, for the man, maybe this all 8-hour work. When he comes home, maybe he's tired sometimes. And maybe for the sister, if it's coming from a man's perspective, she may be busy with home, she may be busy with kids. But what I could say is, first is to communicate to each other, understand, and with the insufficiency you have, tell your spouse. And I'm also giving this a lot to the people who are dating right now, because this is also a red flag in most of our marriages today. Because the way we used to we communicate when we are dating is totally different when you guys are married. You know the famous Somali saying that says, "Ben kuso haragali," something like that, is it? So it's kind of doesn't work when it comes to marriage. People can be they can be available for you 8, 5, 6 hours in a day. But when it comes to marriage, things become totally different. So with this issue coming now, you should be having preferences. You should be discussing on how you communicate your preference, on what you want you guys to understand each other.
Thank you so much, Zakaria. You brought in the aspect of reality check when it comes to marriage. But before I proceed to the next question, I wanted to come to you, Munira, and talk to us about the aspect of attachment style in relation to communication, and specifically people who maybe did not do or considered aspect of like premarital counseling and now finding themselves in marriages or in dating, but maybe with different attachment styles.
Yeah. First of all, with the question, I do believe that everyone has a priority in terms of relationship, and one of the biggest priority that comes in everywhere is communication styles. So when we're talking about communication styles, there's also the aspect of how am I communicating my needs to the person. If every time this person doesn't call me and I tell them, you need to call me, you know, or have you not missed me? That also brings about a way that the other person becomes defensive, and they think to themselves, I shouldn't be calling her, or this person is or him, and this person doesn't like me, or this. There's a lot of speculations. But when we go to also the attachment styles, we have 4 attachment styles. We have anxious attachment style, we have avoidant attachment style, we have secure, and fearful, avoidant, and disorganized. So there are 5. When it comes to fearful, avoidant, and disorganized, they are part of avoidant. Anxious attachers are people who need constant reassurance. They need to be told, I love you, I like you, I'm thinking about you. These are people who need constant reassurance.
True.
When we talk about avoidant, fearful avoidant, these are people who want connection but fear the connection. They're like, I want to talk to this person, but at the same time, I'm afraid of talking to this person. If this person doesn't call me, I speculate a lot of things at the end of the day. When we are talking about disorganized, these are people who don't know if they want to be in a relationship or they don't want to be in a relationship. So avoidant kind of people, the fearful and the disorganized, will always have a passive aggressive kind of a relationship with a person. They will always want to be with people, but at the same time run away from people. Some of them even avoid getting into relationships. And the worst part is avoidant people are always attached to anxious, and anxious people are always attached to avoidant.
Yes.
So you know the worst thing is they are not communicating. Anxious want the reassurance, avoidant want
the space.
Yeah. So they're like, I want you, but let me be independent. So if I become dependent on you, I'm feeling like I'm being too much. And this comes from our caregivers. And for them to communicate, that constant communication is a sign of anxiety, is a sign of anxiousness. How do you talk to your partner? For example, I love secure and anxious relationships.
Okay.
They have this kind of like, secure people are very much deep-rooted in terms of attachment.
Okay.
They know this person asking me this or saying this is not something personal. So they will be able to constantly communicate. But because anxious people are anxious, they will want extra. So if I'm communicating 3 times a day, I want you to communicate 12 times a day. That's the anxious attachment style. If avoidant will be like, I want to communicate with this person, but let me keep quiet for the next 24 hours. You see,
yeah,
they have a very beautiful dynamic when it comes to relationship. So when you want constant communication, ask yourself, how much of my partner am I intruding? How much time of my partner or effort am I intruding? And what kind of attachment style does my partner have, and what kind of attachment style do I have? The best part about our generation is we have free attachment style quizzes in Google. You can check them out, you can see which attachment style you are, you can see where are you in that attachment platform, and then go forward and start working to become secured. And you can also go to the therapist, which is also important, and know where is my deep-rooted attachment style coming from.
Thank you so much, Munira. That was quite something. You really delved into attachment style, but I still feel like there's a lot to be covered. There's a lot to be said about attachment style. Trust you me, don't worry, I'll bring back these people here and address that topic of attachment style. If you may be anxious, or if let's say you are avoidant, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the world for you. How can you move from anxious to secure? How can you move from avoidant to secure? How can you deal or address issues in relation to fearful avoidant or disorganized avoidant? Thank you so much for joining us today, and I would love us to end here. Please, I am sure you have a lot of questions, a lot of clarifications that you would love to get. Come back and join us for more conversations in the next episodes. Thank you.